You wake up and something is off. Not sick enough to make a dramatic announcement, not well enough to pretend everything is normal. Your head feels heavy, your energy is low, your body feels like it is moving slower than the rest of the world. Someone asks how you are doing, and instead of giving a full medical report, you say, "I'm a little under the weather." It is one of the gentlest ways English has to say, "I do not feel well." But when you stop and picture the words, they are strange. Under the weather. As if sickness has a location, as if the weather is above you, as if you have somehow slipped beneath the sky. So where did this phrase come from, and why do we use the weather to talk about feeling unwell? I'm Earl, the creator of Everyday Sayings and Origins. To keep each episode consistent, I use my digital likeness. Now back to the story. Today, under the weather usually means feeling sick, tired, run down, or not quite yourself. It is not normally used for something extremely serious. If someone says they are under the weather, you usually imagine a cold, a headache, a stomach issue, a rough morning, or general exhaustion. It is softer than saying, "I am sick." It is less dramatic than saying, "I feel terrible." It gives people a polite way to explain that they are not doing well without giving every detail. That is part of why the phrase is so useful. Illness can be personal. People may not want to explain symptoms. They may not want to sound too serious. They may not even know exactly what is wrong. So they say they are under the weather. The phrase leaves room. It says enough without saying too much. But the origin points us away from bedrooms, medicine cabinets, and office sick days. It likely points towards ships. Many explanations connect under the weather to nautical language. That makes sense because English has absorbed many phrases from life at sea. Sailors had to name wind, waves, direction, danger, shelter, balance, and storm conditions with practical precision. Those sea phrases later drifted onto land. People who had never worked a ship still ended up using expressions shaped by sailors. Under the weather appears to be one of those phrases, though the exact path is not perfectly settled. One common explanation says that when sailors or passengers felt sick during bad weather, they were sent below deck. Above deck, they were exposed to wind, rain, cold, waves, and motion. Below deck, they were more sheltered. In that sense, a sick person might literally be under the weather. Not under the sky in a poetic way, under the part of the ship exposed to the weather. That explanation is easy to picture. A rough sea, a rolling ship, someone pale and seasick, the deck above taking the wind and rain, the sick person below, out of the storm. It gives the modern phrase a clear physical origin. But like many phrase origins, it may be a little too neat. Some language historians point out that early uses of under the weather were not always about physical illness. The phrase could describe people, places, businesses, or situations that were struggling, low, troubled, or not doing well. That broader meaning matters. It suggests the phrase may have first meant being in distress or difficulty, not only being sick. Then, over time, the illness meaning became the one most people kept. That is not unusual. A phrase can begin with a broad meaning and later narrow. Under the weather may have once meant under pressure, under hardship, or in a bad condition. Then it became especially useful for describing a person who felt unwell. There is also another nautical clue. Some older expressions included phrases like under the weather bow. On a ship, the weather side is the side facing the wind. The weather bow is the forward part of the ship taking the force of wind and rough conditions. If you were under the weather bow, you were near the part of the ship dealing with the roughest impact. That phrase may have helped shape the expression. It connects weather, not just to rain in the sky, but to the ship's position against wind and sea. That is important because sailors used weather in a more active way. Weather was not just a forecast, it was a force you had to survive. The weather side of a ship was the side exposed to wind. The lee side was more sheltered. To be under the weather could mean being under the influence, pressure, or trouble of bad conditions. That idea fits both the older broad meaning and the modern illness meaning. If you are under the weather, you are not at your strongest. Something is pressing down on you. You are not fully in control. You are not in clear, calm air. That may be why the phrase feels so natural. Even if people no longer think about ships, the image still works. When you feel sick, it can feel like a private storm. Your body feels cloudy, your energy drops, your mood changes, the day feels heavier. You may not be in actual bad weather, but you feel as if you are living under it. That emotional connection helped the phrase survive. Weather is one of the oldest ways people describe mood and condition. A sunny personality, a dark mood, a stormy relationship, a cloud over someone. fair weather friends, a rough patch. People naturally connect inner life with outer weather. That is because weather changes how the world feels. A bright morning can lift a mood. A gray sky can make a day feel slower. A storm can make everything feel uncertain. So when the body feels wrong, under the weather gives that feeling an atmosphere. It does not say exactly what hurts. It says the whole personal climate is off. That is why the phrase is softer than medical language. It does not diagnose, it describes. And sometimes description is enough. If someone says, "I am under the weather," most people understand not to push. They may say, "Hope you feel better." They may give the person space. They may understand why plans are canceled. The phrase works socially because it is vague in the right way. It tells people something is wrong without inviting a long discussion. That is useful in daily life. Not every illness needs an explanation. Not every rough day needs a full story. Sometimes the polite phrase does the job, but the phrase also carries a kind of humility. It does not sound dramatic. It does not demand attention. It simply admits that the person is not at full strength. That may be another reason people like it. "I am sick" can sound direct. "I feel awful" can sound intense. "I am under the weather" sounds modest. A little old-fashioned. A little gentle. It lets someone say they are not well while keeping the conversation calm. That gentleness may be why it remains common in work settings. If someone emails, "I am feeling under the weather," it sounds professional enough. It explains absence without oversharing. It is personal, but not too personal. The phrase has become a social tool, a way to mark illness politely. That is far from a storm-tossed ship, but the function is similar. You are stepping out of the weather. You are going below deck for a while. You need shelter. You need recovery. You need to not be fully exposed to the demands of the day. That may be the most useful way to understand the phrase. Whether the exact origin was seasickness below deck, under the weather bow, or a broader nautical expression for distress, the image points to the same feeling. Bad conditions are above and around you. You are not doing well. You need relief. The phrase also survived because it avoids blame. If someone says they are lazy, careless, or unprepared, that is a judgment. If they say they are under the weather, the focus shifts to condition. Something is affecting them. They are not simply choosing to be off. They are dealing with something. That makes the phrase compassionate. It gives people room to be human. Everyone has days when the body does not cooperate. Everyone has mornings when the mind feels foggy. Everyone has moments when they are not quite sick enough to be in bed, but not well enough to be fully present. Under the weather captures that middle space. And that middle space is common. That is why the phrase is not only old, but still useful. There is another reason it works so well. Weather is temporary. A storm comes, a storm passes, clouds move, the sky changes. So when someone says they are under the weather, the phrase quietly suggests that this condition may pass too. It does not sound permanent. It sounds like something to get through. That makes it different from harsher language. It says, "I am not well right now." Not necessarily forever, right now. That is why people often pair it with short-term care. Rest, soup, sleep, a canceled meeting, a day off, a little patience. The phrase frames illness as something temporary enough to wait out. Like bad weather. You do not argue with a storm, you shelter from it. Then you come back out when it clears. That may be the deepest reason the phrase feels comforting. It turns being unwell into a weather pattern, something unpleasant but understandable, something you can endure, something that may move on. Of course, not every sickness is simple or temporary, but in everyday use, under the weather usually belongs to the lighter side of illness. A cold, fatigue, a mild bug, a headache, a general low feeling. It is a phrase for the day when you are not quite right, and it does that job better than almost any other expression. It is also flexible enough to be used carefully. Someone might say, "I have been a little under the weather," to avoid giving details. Someone else might say, "She is under the weather," to politely explain why a person is absent. A parent might say a child is under the weather. A coworker might say they are staying home because they are under the weather. The phrase creates privacy, and privacy matters when the subject is health. Not every phrase origin needs to be dramatic to be meaningful. There is no hidden murder here. No secret political code. No royal scandal. Just the long connection between weather, ships, hardship, and the body. And that is enough. Sometimes the best phrase origins are not about shocking stories. They are about everyday experience. People got sick at sea. People struggled in bad conditions. Sailors used weather language constantly. Over time, the phrase moved inland and softened into the meaning we know now. That is how much of English developed. Practical words from one world became metaphors in another. A ship's trouble became a person's sick day. A storm became a mood. A position on a vessel became a way to say, "I do not feel well." The ocean disappeared from the phrase, but its motion remained. You can almost feel it. The rocking ship, the gray sky, the body unsettled. The need to get below, away from the weather, until things calm down. That image still lives inside the words, even if most people never think about it. So, why do we say under the weather? Because the phrase likely comes from nautical language connected with rough weather, distress, and possibly sailors or passengers feeling sick below deck or under the weather side of a ship. The exact origin is debated, and early uses may have described trouble in general before the phrase settled into its modern meaning of feeling ill. But the image survived because it fits the feeling so well. When you are under the weather, you are not broken. You are not necessarily in crisis. You are just beneath the storm for a little while. Low energy, clouded, not yourself, waiting for the sky inside you to clear. And the next time someone says they are feeling under the weather, you will know there may be an old ship hidden inside that simple sentence. A rough sea, a sheltered place below, and a phrase that carried the feeling of human weakness from the deck of a vessel into everyday life. If you enjoyed discovering the story behind this everyday saying, subscribe to Everyday Sayings and Origins. Each episode uncovers the hidden history behind the words, phrases, rhymes, and traditions we use without thinking. I'm Earl. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next origin. Peace.